Top of the morning to you, laddie.
God, is it already St. Patrick's Day?
Actually, we missed it by like 5 days, but that's never stopped us before.
So what racist bullshit are you gonna dole out this year?
Well, we really got one thing in mind.
I fail to see the connection.
Hey, well, I got a message from God. Told me to start killing people. You're on my list.
That sounds like the son of Sam, David.
I'm sorry, the son of who?
Sam. He was a serial killer.
Oh, well, he was doing it for the wrong reasons then. I'm doing it for the right.
Yeah, he said that too.
Right, but I've got a direct line to God, so...
So did he.
Yeah, but I'm right. Anyway, said I had to say a little prayer before every senseless murder, so rub-a-dub-dub, thanks for the... Jesus.
I'm fucking sick of your goddamn racism every year against the Irish people! You gotta learn some fucking cultural diversity! Ugh. Get your ass up on here!
We watched a movie today.
Boondock Saints II. All Saints Day.
All Saints Day. Disclaimer, right off the bat, our thoughts on Boondock Saints 1. We like it. It's good.
It's pretty good.
It's fine. Sometimes it gets a little bit cheesy, but, you know, it worked.
We deal with it. It gives one of the greatest monologues about fuck ever.
Yes.
Put to screen.
Totally good. This is the sequel, 8 years later, written and directed by the
10.
same... No,
Oh, wait,
it was
no.
8.
It was 8, yes.
It was put out 10 years later. In continuity, it's 8 years later.
Yes.
And the same director-writer, Troy Duffy. In fact...
The monster that he is.
All the same cast returned if they were, like, the same named role. Like, you know,
Yeah.
Some people didn't return just because they didn't return, but...
Yeah, but most of the original cast did.
Yep. So, if you want your original cast to return, cult status. So, yeah, we are doing this movie for St. Patrick's Day.
In theory.
In theory. There's a problem with St. Patrick's Day videos in that
We're running out of material.
we can easily do the Leprechaun series, but those aren't actually on Netflix or Amazon Prime streaming. So, we were stuck with something else. And this movie has 2 Irish guys.
Yeah.
A+.
plus.
That's it. That's the only reason. That's the whole fucking reason.
And Billy Connolly, I think, is actually Irish.
Probably.
Or Scottish. I
Something.
can't remember which.
One of the 2.
Either way, I
All
gotta
right.
make sure.
So, this movie. I'm going to assume that you know Boondock Saints 1 rolling into this. So, it's been 8 years since they moved out with their dad.
Scotland. He's Scottish.
Scottish.
Actually. He's from Glasgow.
It's been 8 years.
Glasgow.
They now live on an Irish sheep herding farm. Where, you know, they're just doing whatever. They just live their life every day. But one day, they get that urge again. That urge to kill for God or whatever.
No. They hear a priest.
No. But they get the urge before that. Remember the guy was saying, like, oh, there's something in the air. Like, they're ready. They know. So they get, you know, something. As it turns out, a priest comes and is like, hey, yo, shit's happening back in Boston. And as it turns out, someone killed a priest in a church using the same style as them. 2 guns, back of the head, pennies over the eyes. So now they have to go back to Boston and like find out who did it / clear their name. Meanwhile, the same 3 ragtag detectives from the first one, not Willem Dafoe's character, are all like, well, shit, man, we helped these guys out before they left, and like we're accessories now. Like shit's coming down on us. And so
God.
a new federal agent comes in and like starts investigating, and it turns out her name is Eunice Bloom, and she is the protege of Willem Dafoe's character.
Because we need that connection.
And she, yeah, whatever. And so she does pretty much all the same sort of stuff as Willem Dafoe's original character. The guys, while they're on a boat over from Ireland, they run into a new guy named Roma. Roma? That sounds right.
Uh,
There's another character.
Romeo.
There's another character named the Roman.
Played by Clifton Collins Jr.
Yes, Clifton Collins Jr. The dad does not come with. It's just the brothers. They cut their hair, get their guns out, and start their way over. They team up with Romeo. Romeo finds out that they're the Saints, and it's like,
Rocco manages to be in this movie even though he's dead.
Yeah, he was in the first little intro bit before the title even ran, and he just keeps popping up every once in a while. By the way, we'll get to the previous movie popping up later, but they get to America and they start taking out the mob that was left over, I guess, from their last ordeal.
Leftovers.
Yeah.
It's just leftovers.
Just the leftovers. Also trying to track down this guy who they determine is very short, and that's about it. He's very short.
He gets pissed about it in the scene,
he's
too.
not happy.
God damn, I'm so goddamn tiny.
Like 5'5", I think they said. But anyway,
He looks smaller than that.
Yeah, I think they played it up. But anyway, movie continues where they keep on, like, Romeo's setting them up. They're like, hey, same way Rocco did, of like, hey, I know where these guys are going to be and I can do this stuff. And they, like, make plans and how to bust and whatever. And then the police, like, find the scenes and they reconstruct, like, how it went down and all that.
Yeah.
And, of course, the protege gets it spot on all the time. Finally, it comes down to them finding, they're found by the protege, by Eunice, and she's immediately on their side. He's just like, yo, my boss told me about you guys. You guys are sweet. Like,
God, I love you.
how can I help?
How can I make your day even better?
So they team up for a while, and they end up trying to figure out a way in order to take down, like, the mob boss in his own apartment. They all do set up perfectly, and everything works out. And then the comedic relief character dies right after the heist, and he's just like, oh god, thank you guys for everything. You guys are awesome. I love the Saints. And they're about to die because it was the short guy who killed him, and the short guy's got them, like, he's got the bartender from the first movie, like, as a hostage. But then out of nowhere, Billy fucking Connolly shows up. He came over from Ireland at some point, and he's like, all right, well, tell me where the old man is. Throughout this entire movie, there's been a flashback subplot with Billy Connolly back to the 50s, showing how he became the merciless killer.
He became the monster. It was Hannibal Rising.
Except better.
Actually, yeah.
But the whole thing was that
sucked.
His boss was killed by some mob guys, and so he just lost it after that. And a coworker / friend of his helped develop the plans and his iconic, like, 6-pistol jacket vest thing.
Yeah.
And that's basically that. But as it turns out, the old man was his friend, and the old man's been the one that's, like, orchestrating all this stuff of, like, getting the mobs, and, like, he's the one who hired the short guy in order to get the Saints out of hiding, because he's making a big play, and he's got to get all the pieces out. Because
fuck, I don't give a shit.
Boondock Saints 3 has to happen.
Because this guy saw Smoking Aces and thought that movie was good.
So finally, it comes to a confrontation between Billy Connolly.
I actually did enjoy that movie.
Billy Connolly and the Roman, / the old man, and
the old man.
He's completely surrounded by, like, a whole bunch of guys, but Saints got their own plan, and, like, they come in, guns running. It's a big fucking action piece of everything happening.
Wow.
In order to get that information, the Eunice hacks in the FBI, and therefore she has to be on the run now. That doesn't come until the very end. So at the very end, Billy kills the Roman, but is shot in the process, and he's dying.
And then we see...
And then first off, then they walk out of the building, and they are arrested by the cops. The brothers are in jail, in prison, and there doesn't seem to way out.
For, like, 20-something murders.
For 20-something murders. And then we go to see that Eunice is on the run. She's got a wig, and she's about to
dyed her hair,
whatever.
Either way.
And she goes out the boat, and who's there but Willem Dafoe's character? What? And he's like, oh, I've got this whole thing. We're going to get the Saints out of prison, and we're going to blow this thing up to the whole next level, implying that it's going to be like a worldwide thing or something. Saints Among Us. Sure.
Saints International.
Saints Incorporated.
With Willem Dafoe as the CEO.
Whatever it is, that seems to be the setup for the next one, because this is so obviously just, like, baiting it. It's just like,
and the only thing that Troy Duffy is working on, at least for right now, from what I understand, I don't know if he's making a Saints 3 or not, but he is doing Boondock Saints Origins.
Yeah, which is, God only knows where that is along the production line.
And I really don't care. Because, as I've said to David multiple times throughout this movie is really fucking stupid.
Yeah, stupid has by far been the biggest noun used here.
Stupid. Like, cause it's funny because, like, the original film definitely has moments of camp, definitely has moments of kind of a little cringy, line reads or story structure or something like that. But overall, the film's general aesthetic, general characters, and general atmosphere hold together relatively pretty well. Like, you have a lot of conversations, especially going back and forth in the film communities, about Rotten Tomatoes and its effect on how people perceive movies and how people go to films. Because, people were saying, oh, Rotten Tomatoes is ruining the movie industry, yada, yada, yada. But you look at the scores on Boondock Saints, the first one, the critic score, I think it was something like 16%.
That's a lot.
And then the audience score was 90-something. And I agree with that. I think that it's actually a pretty damn good film. I've also seen the documentary about Troy Duffy and his making of the movie, which I'm pretty sure he did himself, which is amazing to me because it doesn't necessarily portray him in a good light.
No.
Because he's a royal fucking douchebag. He reminds me, he's like a low-rent Uwe Boll, and that's saying something.
Yeah, definitely.
Because unlike Uwe Boll, he actually has one good film in his oeuvre so far. As far as I'm aware. But at the same time, this film, from what I was telling David, one of my biggest problem with this, over everything else, was that it was taking all of the beats and all of the plot elements of the first movie, barely revamping them at all, and then trying to sell it again in the exact same order. So I'm just like, no, you can't really do that.
Yeah.
Especially if people have been waiting near a decade for your movie to come out and all you do is force feed them the same bullshit.
That was over a decade.
Yeah, and also that's one of the reasons why the first movie works is because of the era it came out in, the aesthetic it has, the way that it was presented to us at the time. It was all about timing. If the first Boondock Saints came out when the second one came out, it would have been bad.
Oh yeah,
it would have been bad.
Oh yeah,
and I would have thought it that way, but it's the way it was made, the time, the context.
There was a bit of a grunge aspect to the movie.
Yeah, there was a punk. There was a punk aspect,
and it was
to
just the sort of thing. I'm just like, man, fuck the system, do your own shit like that. That sort of thing. And it's just
and that was of that era of the time, late 90s.
It was unabashedly racist, sexist, did the stuff, but it didn't come off as hateful. It just came off as
it came out as kind of raw.
Yeah,
it's showing you this is what Boston feels like. The world definitely felt like, okay, I got some tactile, some tangibility out of it. This one,
it's not like the Boston you see on something like Boston Legal, where it's just oh, everything's so sleek and shiny.
These are the underground guys, these are the sleek guys, and of course, there's aspects of the characters from that film and in this one that are way ridiculously over the top.
Oh yeah,
and I'm okay with that. I went into this film expecting that, and that's not what I found stupid. What I found stupid is that Troy Duffy wrote this screenplay.
Oh, is that all?
Yeah, because Troy Duffy was able to kind of catch lightning in a bottle with the first film.
Yeah.
And I got excited for the fact that there was a second Boondock Saints movie coming out. I was excited that Troy Duffy was directing it again. I'm like, okay, cool. But I was not excited when I found out that he was also the one writing the screenplay, because screenplays is not Troy Duffy's strength. As if you could look at the original Boondock Saints, and I would think the weakest part of that entire movie was still the script. Yeah. And even he made it work with all of the elements at that time. He wasn't able to duplicate that type of kind of earnestness in a way. And also, it just got to a point where it was just downright stupid. There was this one scene where, they're jumping through the window, and they're like rappelling down, and they're jumping through the window, and they break through the window and all that stuff, and they still have ropes attached to them, but then you start doing the whole
Just like slide for like 50 feet.
Slide, just constantly sliding because, they understand Newton's law of motion. It's like, so it's just constantly sliding and shooting, but then all of a sudden the ropes are just gone. Like that's a major continuity error. Like, of course, some people might be like, okay, you're nitpicking here, but I'm like, I don't think it's nitpicking because they make such a fucking deal about it right before they break through the windows. Like, your fucking rope again.
You need this much length. You have to count it off. Da, 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 da.
Yeah, and that's another thing too. They're just reusing jokes from the first film.
Mm-hmm. They're even calling attention to the fact that they're reusing jokes from the first film.
Yeah,
like when the whole rope thing is happening, they're like. Or talking about how he saw this in a movie or something like that, and he's like, here I am using fucking rope again.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, again, like, hey, exactly.
What movie did you get this from? Oh, it was a good movie. It worked for him, too.
Yeah.
And...
There's a Clint Eastwood.
I wanted to see the characters evolve more.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to... Because for whatever you might happen to say about the characters in the first movie, they go through character arcs. They start off in a particular way. Something forces their hand into a particular way of viewing things and taking things into their own personal their own personal vendettas there, and then as it goes along, it changes them, it gets them cocky and all that kind of stuff. But at the very end of the movie, one thing that really got me was the way that Rocco died, and that shook both of those characters to their core. And so I thought that there was a definite change there, like kind of like either that they're seeing what they're doing in a new light, or they're doubling down on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think from my perspective,
but we didn't have any kind of change after that. This kind of feels like what happens at the end of Dexter when he goes and bees a fucking lumberjack.
Yeah, and that is a problem here. Is that it's been 8 years and they're away for that. For me, it's
and they're just sitting.
Yeah,
and sitting. Not emotion. They just grew beards.
For me, it's the only people that really had character arcs is Romeo's character. Not even an arc as much as he went from like a capable fighter and doing all that sort of stuff, but he went from kind of a fuck up to someone who's competent.
To being somebody who's like part.
Yeah, part of the group to the point
Ding
where
dong, motherfucker.
They're doing the whole thing where like all four of them are walking down the thing and like going to say like their mass and their prayers and all that sort of stuff. And like he's a part of the group walking in. I'm like, that seems like it's kind of reserved for like the Saints, but I guess they are like trying to establish him as like a member of the group now.
Yeah.
The other one is Billy Connolly's character.
Yeah.
I felt that because he died in this movie, I felt that they gave him maybe not a. They
didn't fully kill him off because he has that.
There's a scene
with his hand raised.
There's a scene when the police are getting the brothers that there's a hand raised up and grabbing like.
Or unless that was Romeo's.
I think they purposely left
it up. Because Romeo's in the hospital bed at the end.
Yeah, I think they personally left it up to like, who was it?
Yeah.
But when it came down to this movie, he didn't get a lot of characterization in the last movie. Just the first one, just because he was introduced basically as like a third act sort of character, at least as the father. There was that ending act, just like the monster guy.
Yeah.
But as the father, he wasn't introduced until the very end, so he wasn't given a lot of time. So in this movie, they fleshed out his entire past. They gave him a bit more in like why he's here, why he's getting involved, and they let him die. They gave him a full story in this movie.
Yeah.
Which I think is 1,000 times better than any of the detectives at the FBI lady or either of the brothers.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it would have been far more interesting to see kind of a play back and forth between Billy Connolly's character and Peter Fonda's character.
Peter Fonda was the Roman.
Yeah, he was
the old man.
The Italian old Don dude.
Yeah.
I thought that there was a lot of potential there for playing with stuff, but all you ended up doing was just kind of cribbing the feel from The Godfather 2. And the problem with that is that you did actually have a couple of really interesting plot elements surrounding Billy Connolly's character, the dad. Was it Noah? I think was his actual name.
Maybe I don't know. Continue. I'll look it up.
It's like, but the problem was it didn't really evolve beyond some really stereotypical hero villain type bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Like the way that the first movie's story evolved was that I don't know.
Like here, okay.
And I can't really keep comparing this to the first film because it is its own movie. But as a sequel, it's about transferring the ideas that were explored well in the first one, moving into the second one, and being able to use a particular parameter in which that you'd be able to explore the ideas even more thoroughly.
I'm going to stop you there in saying we can't compare it to the first one because the movie itself constantly compares itself to the first one.
Yeah, and it constantly references clips.
They bring in literal flashbacks to whenever there's something like, hey, you might want to remember this sort of thing. Yeah. It's like in Marvel Comics, they have a little like page at the beginning just being like, hey, here's the story so far in case this is your first one.
Also, if you really want to think about the ending of the first film, not including like all of like the interviews on the street stuff that they have planned during the credits. It's the final scene, final scene after the courtropom scene. It's that epilogue scene where they're in the hotel motel room and they're asking, like, how far are we going to take this? It's like, go. As far as it's needed, so it's to have the Constitution. So that gives the impression that they're going to continue to do this.
Yeah. But
then in the jump between that movie and this one, they stopped doing shit completely.
And moved to Ireland.
And they moved to Ireland to work on a sheep farm.
That
makes no fucking sense in terms of the narrative and the characters that you have constructed and left at the end of that. I understand 8 years is a long time, but at the same time, though, I was not able to understand any particular jump between the end of the first movie and the beginning of the second. There's no connection. And also at the very beginning of the second movie, they're basically all blank slates. I didn't get the fucking characters that we got in the first movie.
My whole thing is that, like, at the end of the first
movie... They're boring.
The end of the first movie, maybe it's because Rocco stole the show so goddamn much.
I don't think he stole the show. Maybe they had really good chemistry because they didn't really have a lot of great chemistry with Clifton Collins Jr.
I'm not talking about chemistry. I'm saying that Rocco, like, by himself, like, he was given the lines. He was given everything. To the point where they brought him back for a dead monologue.
A dead monologue dream sequence.
Just to continue giving those lines that Troy Duffy loves so much. But... I never in the first movie got the feeling that like the brothers, like, I know they went through a lot, but I didn't really feel like they evolved a whole bunch. I felt like they were a couple of like, drunkards and fuck ups, but they were always like devout and they were, good brothers to each other. Then they got their message from God. And then after the message of God, pretty much until Rocco died, they were pretty much the exact same.
Yeah.
Then when Rocco died and their dad was introduced, they just got a little bit more serious. There wasn't a huge shift anywhere along there. In this movie...
But you saw a development either way, though.
Very little. But in this movie, it's even worse. I fully agree, because it starts off with... Are they already in like the serious mindset? Are they back to completely blank slates? They
don't change throughout the entire film.
They literally start off like with thing when they're talking to Romeo and they're like, "Hey, so how do you like decide who dies?" We can't cribbing the lines from the first one.
Yeah,
and then it's like, it's
they even do the fucking fake out with the gun.
It's just like it's not so simple as just picking someone and then going and kill him. And the other one's just like, actually, yeah, it kind of is. It's like, yeah, I guess I just kind of hoped there was a little bit of art. And it's just like, it's been 8 years, guys. Like, you should have already gotten in your head how this shit was, but they still seem so unsure of everything about it.
And you can argue that, okay, it's just because they've been out of the loop, but at the same time, I don't think that that's the case in this one.
I feel like it's Troy Duffy,
especially if they're getting together with their dad, who's like this massive killing machine.
Yeah, but
the movie solidifies that too.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, it seemed to me like Boondock Saints 2 was supposed to be made for like people who didn't see Boondock Saints 1, or it's been so long that they just needed a recap. So they just started them off as if it was more or less fresh. But like, the only people who are really seeing Boondock Saints 2 are people who have only seen Boondock Saints 1.
Yeah, we're ready.
No one's going to go into 2 without seeing 1.
And you're not going to go into... And especially if you like, okay... For instance, when the movie came out, like, oh, I heard about the first one. I guess it's finally time for me to watch the first one. You watch the first one. You end up liking it. You end up hating it. Whatever you end up having to do, end up having. But you go into the second movie, I'm like, this is literally the same fucking thing.
All right, look, final thoughts for me. I full disclosure, I have seen this movie before, but it was so long ago, I literally forgot everything. Absolutely everything, save for the final shot of them in prison, just like, hey, there's going to be a third movie.
In another 10 to 20 years.
You're
going to be old men.
I don't remember how I felt about it back then, but I definitely didn't hate it, hate it.
I
Looking
mean,
back,
Billy Connolly couldn't even be in this movie
which
anymore.
is a
He has
shame.
Parkinson's disease.
Yeah,
So
but this movie in particular, I don't hate it. It's not the worst thing we've ever seen, clearly, but it's got so many flaws that it's not a good follow up to such a cult classic, and it's definitely like it's not different enough that you could even say that they're like doing the New Hope to Empire Strikes Back thing, where it's just like, oh, it's a totally different tone. Like, no, it's not. It's the exact same tone. It's just it's trying to be an exact successor, but then failing on every front. It's not. Technically, it's fine. Writing-wise, it's just kind of meh, especially if you've seen the first one at all recently. But it's just kind of lackluster all around, and I feel like that's kind of contributing to the fact that it's been 10 years since then, and we still haven't gotten another one. So, hey, Troy, hop on it if you want to. We're not getting any younger, and Norman Reedus isn't getting any cheaper.
no. And it's kind of like the problem that was with Sin City and the Sin City to Dame to Kill for. It came out like 10 years after the fact, and no one fucking cared about it anymore. And it was a lot of continuation of the shit that would have been okay in that time frame, but it isn't okay anymore because we expect more now.
Yeah.
Times change. My final thoughts is that I thought that the technicals were all over the goddamn place because some of the editing was just fucking messy. There was cinematography that was just awful.
I did forget about the technical. There was, when they were doing the repelling scene, there was a green screen effect. Whew. Not great.
Yeah. There's some stuff that worked fine, and then there was, there was some pretty competent moments for the most part. But as far as that, the acting was extremely subdued. Clifton Collins Jr. carried like the energy for the majority of the cast, except for the guy who played like the mob boss. But all he was doing was just screaming.
Yeah.
Clifton Collins Jr. He's got the crazy eyes and whatnot. And goes nuts like that. He plays a similar character in American Gods, in the whatever. But at the same time, like, and he's a fun actor. I really like him. But like Norman Reedus was not there in this movie. Sean Patrick Flanery was not there in this movie.
I felt like Sean was there more than Norman. But
he was, but at the same time, it's not necessarily their fault because they had no semblance of what the characters were in the first movie. No. So you don't really have that here, and you don't get that type of camaraderie here. So overall, my whole shtick is that this movie, it's a waste of time, and it's a bigger waste of time for the people who are the fans of the first movie because you've waited a decade for this sequel to finally come out. Yeah. It has a big budget behind it. It's ready to go. It has all of the major people behind it, and it even eventually included Willem Dafoe. But, the fact of the matter is, though, it fucking sucks, and it's stupid. You made a movie stupid.
And it's stupid. That's basically it. All right, and those are our thoughts on
Boondock Saints II, All Saints Day.
God damn it.
What?
This movie wasn't a St. Patrick's Day movie. I mean, there were no leprechauns. There were no pots of gold, rainbows. There was a little bit of Ireland and booze, and that's not enough. We are scraping the bottom of the barrel with St. Patrick's Day movies. And how many years can we keep going? I mean, how far are we going to take this?
The question is not how far. The question is, do you possess the Constitution, the depth of faith, to go as far as is needed?
Made possible by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.